今天要带大家去看一下的一个塞尔维亚一个科学家的一个博物馆啊，它的名字叫什么特斯拉，还挺有名气啊。我之前也没听说过，所以说今天去看一下子。听小伙伴说是一个很有名的一个人物啊。老城区的建筑啊，就是比较老啊，但是还挺有感觉的。 这个名人啊，叫什么特斯拉啊，他的博物馆，我想进去看一下。
During the last decade of the 19th century, Tesla became a superstar, a celebrity, and a very important person in New York's upper echelons. Prestigious American and European universities were falling over themselves to present him with medals and honours. After a lecture to the Royal Society in London in 1892, Tesla was at Colorado Springs. There, in an unattractive timber laboratory, he undertook fascinating experiments with an oscillating transformer of 12 million volts and discovered resonant frequencies of the Earth, which established stationary waves. He believed he had found a mechanism which would transmit energy and information around the world. Later, writing to his most important sponsor, J.P. Morgan, he said, "I have found the new philosopher's stone. My discovery is so revolutionary that it will impact almost all social values and relations." On his return to New York in January 1900, Tesla published spectacular photographs from Colorado as part of a visionary article about the future of the global society entitled "The Problem of Increasing Human Energy." Soon after this, financed by J.P. Morgan, he began to build a laboratory, the famous tower in Shoreland, Long Island, close to New York. The building, 60 meters tall, which he named the increasing transmitter because of its geometry, mechanical and electrical features, was a tower which corresponded to characteristics of the Earth and represented a similarly tied resonating system. He intended this system to support wireless emission and transmission of information and energy to any point on the Earth. But his plans were to come to naught. J.P. Morgan suddenly withdrew all his funds and refused to finance any further work by Tesla. It seems that the final purpose of Tesla's system was unacceptable, and that the whole project was ahead of its time. Tesla was shocked. In 1908, Tesla refocused his work on machine engineering and delivered a number of new inventions such as turbo machines and lathes. He wanted to earn enough money to finance construction of his world wireless system himself. Thanks to business problems and an unreasonable approach, many of his ideas and projects were not completed, and today they remain as a point of interest for many engineers and researchers. This was a period when Tesla took critical aim at the developing trends of the contemporary world and presented many projections of the possible consequences of a number of issues, which humanity was consuming profligately. The necessity to find new alternative and renewable sources of energy, and the inevitability of moderating consumption. He promoted a culture of human values, a serious education which would balance the acquisition of skills with the nurturing of ideas. After the beginning of the Great Depression in 1929, he closed his laboratories and agencies and gave up on his efforts to develop a business based on the commercialization of his own discoveries. In his last years, he was notable for giving sensational interviews in which he announced a new dynamic theory of gravity, machines to use energy from the environment, and a new type of defensive weapon. This last sparked the interest of American, German, British, and Soviet intelligence agencies. After signing a contract to protect the Soviet Union from air attacks by constructing what he called a death ray, he had a suspicious traffic accident which hastened his death. Tesla died peacefully in his sleep on Orthodox Christmas Day in 1943. He left behind 300 patents and thousands of sketches.
You'll see the lighting up clear, and when you do it, your lamps will glow up, so we will prove that it's possible to wirelessly transmit electricity. So it will be a bit noisy, so don't get scared. Nothing bad will happen. And just one more important question: does anybody in this room have a pacemaker? So no? You have? Okay. Yeah. You can still watch, but from a safe distance. Okay. So that's it. Just insert it. Dali najprej ima pacemaker. Enjoy the experiment.
吓死！刚才那个导电的完了，手里的灯泡就亮了，我的没亮，他们别人的亮。这声音非常大，很吓人。靠，真神奇了啊！这东西。
What you can see here is spelled Smai in Cyrillic letters, which means dragon in English, so that's the nickname of that boy. Das was a big fan of his, and when he was here in Belgrade, so only once, for 3 days, in 1892, he attended one dinner with all the famous people from that time, including Smai, who wrote a poem for him, and Das was really touched, and when he got back to America, he decided to build this transformer in his honor. So the output voltage of this one is around 250,000 volts, so half of the previous one. So we'll try to do this as well, so just don't, again, press into this way. This boat right here, which is controlled by this remote controller. And Tesla presented this in Madison Square Garden in New York in 1898. So on the remote controller we have two transformers, and can you tell me what is the difference between them just by glancing at them? Just like the first look.
One is smaller,
yes, so one has more copper windings around secondary coil. So they produce two different signals with two different frequencies, and they are broadcast all around. And these two antennas receive the signals. If you look closer, you will see that they are connected to the transformers inside the boat, which then amplify the voltage, so it's sufficient enough to activate the battery, so this black box. And the battery will power this mechanism, so the propeller and the rudder. And even though this remote controller is quite bigger than the ones that we have today, it has less buttons, so I assume it's less complicated. So you have a few options, so you can press neither of them. You can press just the left one, just the right one, or both of them at the same time. And if I asked you to guess, what would you do?
Left and right, maybe? No.
So
More and faster, maybe.
Okay, so you can experiment, and what will work is if you press them both at the same time. This is because the both uses AND logic gate, which Tesla invented as well. So if you press only one of them, nothing would happen. You need to press them both. So now it would be best maybe to look at the mechanism at the back. It will start moving when we press the buttons. Okay, so you can see now the propeller is spinning for the first signal. Second one is for the rudder. It's going to the opposite side. So as you can see, maybe if you didn't get a chance to see this, maybe you can switch, or we can do this after the tour. So, okay, can you just move a bit to your right so maybe everybody can see better? Great. So it's this transformer I'm talking about. The output voltage of this one is 120,000 volts, so it's much lower than this one, for example. But this current, as I said, has still high voltage and frequency, but low intensity. So it only goes on the surface of the conductor and not through it. So in our case, because we are conductors, it would go only on the surface of our skin and not through our organs. That's why that's called the skin effect, which we'll test out right now. So let's see. So as you can see, I'm still alive because it only went through my skin. But if you want to test it out, if you don't believe me, you can. Sure. So maybe it tickles a bit, but it's safer. Okay, yeah, just like this. Okay, great. Anybody else? Okay, if not, we can just try the full round as well. So let's see. So you can see we can do the previous experiment with this one as well. Of course, it's the same device, but the range, of course, is smaller. You can see here it won't blow up.
And what's the range of this one?
Somewhere where you're standing right here.
2 meters.
Yeah, if you were standing a bit further away, yeah, it wouldn't blow up. But here it's somewhere around here. Yeah, and if you do something like this, you can see just this part is going up. If I move my hand, just a closer one.
Your body is the conductor.
Yes, exactly. So it's the same thing. Okay, so with this, we would conclude the technical part of the picture. But a bit closer, like this.
这也是非常神奇的一个磁场啊！把它圆的东西放上，自己就能立起来。原来是伟大的一个发明家、科学家啊，真的很神奇。这个电路。这应该是科学家曾经用过的物品。跟特斯拉先生合个影啊，吸取一点他的智慧。确实是一个伟大的科学家、发明家啊！现在这些东西看起来都非常神奇啊，就是通过磁场啊、电力什么的，就改变了物质的变化，非常的神奇、神呐！